Welcome to Presently Presents.
I think a lot of people don't have like a specific USP. You don't have to be a history presenter or a sports presenter. It might help you. Some people it really helps, but then I don't think it's like an impossible task without one. If you're watching this or listening to this and you're like, I want to be a presenter, just embrace it from the start. Like, tell people you're a presenter.
Hey everyone, my name is Ceyda Uzun. I'm a presenter and guest host for Presently Presents. I'm so excited to get chatting with different Presently members all about their careers and their journeys. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to get straight into it with today's guest, Esme Todd. Esme is an Avenger with a clear, confident presenting tone and a variety of presenting styles and experiences under her belt. She started all the way in 2016 as a weather presenter for Made Television and continued on as a freelancer, presenting for children's TV, Tech Busters, as well as all things science and history, just to name a few. She is currently presenting Drive Time at Riverside Radio and the other art show at Sky. This girl never stops. We love to see it. Esme, come talk to me. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Honestly, just from like looking at your Instagram, I could not believe you're not just a presenter, you're like a legit creative. You do so many different things. I can really feel like the art in what you do.
Oh.
Have you always been a creative person?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit. I would say I liked that sort of stuff at school and stuff, but yeah, definitely enjoy the industry for being creative, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely got that sense with the history stuff, the science, a bit of cooking I think I saw, making a burger or something for children's TV. I'm like, wow, there's so many like different things. So I wanted to get to know you a little bit first, where your journey began and the sort of opportunities that you took on and how you got there really, if you want to, in your own words, explain to us a bit of what you do.
Okay, so like from the start, So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like you said, I
all
started
the way from way back when.
like you said, I started as a weather presenter in 2016, and I did that for about a year at a company called Made Television, which is like a local TV channel. I know a lot of people in London know of London Live. It was like another version of that in different cities. So I was based in Bristol, where I'm from, and then did that for a year, I think, and then they just basically shut the station down. Well, not fully, but made it like most people made redundant. So I was like thrown into freelancing a lot earlier than I wanted to be. So I was made freelance, I think, I'm going to say start of 2018, and then had no idea what I was doing or where to go with it because I didn't have any connections, didn't have any contacts, anything like that. So I just kind of panicked for about 6 months. I guess I would have only been about 20 or something like that, 21. I can't remember how old I would have been then, but yeah. And then just started applying to random jobs. And I suppose the more you do, the more it kind of, people might remember you from a job, or maybe you just kind of get to know different people, or you connect with more people, you network. It's all about networking for sure. And then just did more and more stuff. I started doing a bit of kids stuff. I did BBC Bitesize quite early in my career, so when I presented for them, it kind of got me liking kids content and doing kids stuff. And then I did the Entertainer Squad very soon off the back of that, or if not at the same time, which was for the retail company The Entertainer, which is the toy shop which you get in like a load of shopping centres. And we were kind of playing kind of characters. We were basically unboxed toys and did like celebrity interviews and stuff. It was a really fun little job, and then did that for a few years, but meanwhile doing a lot of other freelance stuff. So yeah, it's been really random.
Oh my gosh, so just going back a little bit, so you said that you were made redundant and for about 6 months you were left, you didn't know what to do, and then you started applying to random jobs. Was there a structure you established in terms of maybe jobs boards that you used or different networking events you went to? What kick-started that for you in terms of getting into children's TV?
No networking events. And yeah, I suppose I should say as well, I haven't actually done children's TV, but just children's content. TV would be something I'd love to do with children's, but yeah, it's children's TV themed stuff. But I think Presently didn't exist back when I'm talking, so that wasn't a thing. So we're talking about there's several other job sites that I'd used back then, and you just literally, it was just a case of looking through and seeing if you found some. I was on a couple of like agency websites who put me forward for certain jobs, e.g. like BBC Bitesize, I got through an agency. And yeah, just kind of like applying to things, a lot of like LinkedIn messaging, like finding the people who do the roles where you'd like to kind of get involved with, and just LinkedIn messaging them. Obviously, you often get ignored, but sometimes you get a response, or sometimes maybe they can pass you on to someone who can help, and then that's how you end up getting the connections down the line.
Is there any in particular that you recommend as being particularly good? You mentioned agency and other jobs boards. Is there any that you remember aside from Presently that people watching might think, oh, well, I'm at the start of my career and I'm not sure where to start?
Yeah, so there was Star Now and Mandy are two of the ones I would use. I will say that they're more for acting, and I'm not an actor. And I think for me, like, that's why I quite liked, and this is not just me being like, you know, trying to like be nice to Presently, but genuinely that's why Presently was, I guess, a new, you know, coming in the newer last year or two, or whatever it would have been, is more just for presenting, which is why I prefer this one now. But yeah, the other ones are more about acting, but you do find sometimes a presenting job now and again pops up on there.
Yeah. So you mentioned Presently as being a good jobs board, and one thing that Presently asks for is a showreel, a demo. And I noticed from your Instagram that you have a really good showreel. And I'm not just saying that, but it's not too distracting. I think your showreel clearly shows what you do and the different styles of presenting that you do. Is it something you created yourself, or is it something that you got made for you? If you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. Yeah, it's something I made myself. I don't really know what I'm doing. But I just use, I've got Mac, and I just use iMovie. Like, literally, that's it. I will say I had a friend who does some graphic-y stuff, who did just a little, it's like a little bit of my name pops up at the start. He made that for me. But other than that, I put it all together. The reason, I think I was lucky when I first got made redundant. When I was a weather presenter at Made Television, I wasn't just a weather presenter. I also did some like live studio stuff, some live reporting, and I did like a little Christmas show for them. Because it's like local TV, you get to branch out quite a lot. So when I left there, I was able to make a showreel, which made it look like I did a lot more than I had. Like, I really hadn't done very much in terms of presenting, but it made it look like I'd done loads. So when I had that, I was able to then apply to the jobs in the first sort of 2018 year. And I think that showreel stayed with me for a while, I think, maybe to like 2019, like the end of 2019, maybe 2020, I can't remember. I had it for quite a long time. And then that showreel, the second showreel I ever had, lasted me until this year. I made my most recent one this year, which you should probably update them a bit more, but I didn't have anything that I really wanted to put in until this year. So I made one at the start of this year, which is the one you're talking about. So yeah, just made that myself, clips in. I've asked lots of people in the past about what looks good and what doesn't look good, and I think I've just used their advice over the years, and I carry that through with me when I'm making showreels.
It's quite interesting actually, because you mentioned that in the beginning you didn't have that much to work with, but you made it look like you did. And I think that's a really interesting point, because it can be quite overwhelming creating a showreel or a demo when you don't have that much to go from. And it's almost like a cycle of, but you need the content to get somewhere, but you need to get somewhere for the content to... So I think it's a little bit like chicken egg when you're first starting out. But I think that's a good point. Like, even if you just like work, if you're at the beginning and just work locally, or create that content, or go out on the street and film it yourself, it gives you something to work with where you can then go get the jobs. And sort of build your way up.
Completely agree. And there are companies out there as well that they can help you make showreels, and they can kind of, not, I guess it's like kind of faking a scenario, but it looks really real, and you can do that sort of thing as well. And I know a lot of people do that, which is like a really helpful thing to do if you really are starting with nothing and you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to get a show together, because it can be quite daunting faking your own content out in the streets. Some people do it, they just grab a camera, go out in the streets, interview people, make a showreel, and it works. I know I would have found that quite daunting, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. So you've done a lot of on-screen content, which is how you made your wonderful showreel, but you're also now getting more into radio. And we both work at Riverside Radio, which is crazy because we've never actually officially met. No. But that's the first thing I noticed, like, oh, it's Esme from Riverside. And I asked you because I didn't know that you'd done so much before as well, because I think I've always got this assumption that, you know, that people start in radio.
Yeah,
Because
I think
radio almost has more like community access, I think, where it's a sort of gateway into getting into things. How have you found that experience volunteering at Riverside, and would you recommend it?
yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people do start in radio. I actually did. I haven't mentioned this because I forget that I did it, but back in day, so it would have been maybe like 2015, 2016, like really early doors. There was a local voluntary radio station in Bristol, like a really tiny little one. Literally, we used to do it in a cupboard, basically. And I used to do that on a Sunday evening with another guy. I mean, I bet I didn't do anything technical. I just kind of sat and chatted to him. But yeah, I did that for a bit. The only reason I kind of stopped is just because it was quite. I never grew up in city of Bristol. I grew up in the countryside in Somerset, so it was just quite far for me to get to, and it just ended up being like a bit of a task. But yeah, so I did technically start there. So that was my first go at speaking in a way that was presenting, if that makes sense, rather than just talking as you would talk to your friend. But yes, Riverside. So I started at Riverside in October 2021, so about a year and a bit ago now. And that was just because I moved to London, and there isn't really as many community radio stations outside as there are in London. Outside of London, it's just not as big. They do exist.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they do exist, but like there's one in Bristol that's in the centre of Bristol, which is actually like quite popular. But the thing is, it's like the waiting list to get into these places because so many people want to volunteer, right? It's like a really cool thing to do, so it's really hard to get into it. But yeah, Riverside, I joined, and I was doing the breakfast show with Dan, who I think you know, and I did that for about coming up to a year, and then moved on to Drive really, really recently, and it's just due to like timings. It just works out a little bit easier for me with timings and other jobs.
No, breakfast is way too early. It's too early for me. I was like, out in my evening show.
Yeah, literally. I prefer. I think, to be honest, it's just like I'm not good in that. Not good getting up at like 6 a.m. and traveling, and it's just difficult with other work and stuff like that. But anyway, so now I do drive time with Martin on a Tuesday, which just works. But even then, it is tough because obviously voluntary radio is hard because you don't always have if you have other work coming up. Sometimes it can be tricky to balance it all out because obviously it's voluntary, but it's really good for getting experience and putting together demos if you need them for radio stuff. And yeah, I do recommend it for people. Actually, it's very they're very welcoming there, and they do really let people come and join, and it's good for people who have just no experience who want to get involved. They do like a bit of training for you, and I think it's a really lovely little station, and it feels really professional as well.
I agree 100%, especially since they've upgraded as well. I think when you work somewhere, you don't want to feel intimidated, and what I love about community radio and Riverside especially is just the way that it feels like a family and a home. I'm not just exaggerating or selling it by saying that. It genuinely feels like a place that's comfy to work. Like, it feels like you're just at home in your own setting, recording, and it's very different from on-screen presenting. So that leads me on to what I next wanted to talk to you about. What do you prefer, if I can ask? Because I'm sure they both have their pros and cons. But if you had to sort of steer in a particular direction now that you've tried both, would you want to be more a full-time on-screen presenter, or would you want to pursue like everyday radio presenting if the sort of big opportunity came along?
Okay, if we trying to think now, if we had if it was like a perfect world and the perfect jobs were being popped up in front of me, probably the on-camera stuff. I just think it's something I know a lot more about and probably prefer. However, radio is still quite new to me, so I'm not sure. I think as I go through it, I would love the idea of having like a regular radio show. I think that would be really nice. So yeah, if there was like a regular radio show that was like, even if it was just like one day a week, like a paid job, or like on a sort of mainstream station, or if it was like a couple of days a week or whatever, that would be really nice. I don't know, I'm probably 50-50. I do more presenting on camera, if that helps, but yes, I'd probably slightly more comfortable with that, but it's like in the future it's a goal of mine to have some more frequent radio and stuff as well. So yeah, I think maybe 50-50-ish, or 75-25, something like that.
I agree. I think there's pros and cons to both, because on screen has its own charm and a number of sort of on your feet opportunities that you can take with doing that, with seeing different places, meeting different people. But one thing about radio, I think, is it really helps you to develop your voice and develop your personality as a presenter. And one thing that I've heard a lot in the industry is a USB. What's your unique selling point? And at first, it's something I found really intimidating, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, what on earth is a USP, and what is my voice? How do I, really put myself out there and say this is what makes me unique?
Yeah.
Is this something that you ever come across? Is this something that you know how to sell yourself almost? Like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, yes, it is something, unfortunately, that people go on about. I can see where some people have a USP and it really helps them, and I can really, really see that. So there are certain people who maybe their thing is property and therefore they're perfect for property jobs, and I wouldn't be cast in a property job because I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. So that would make, like, that sort of thing does work. However, I would also argue that it shouldn't be something that completely puts you off if you're new, because I think some people do say at the start you have to have one, and actually, like, I know a lot of people who don't have one. And if you think about, like, your favorite presenters who are on TV, a lot of them don't have, their USP might be really broad. They might just do entertainment, but that's not really a USP because everyone, like, a lot of people do entertainment. So maybe I'm chatting rubbish, who knows? But I just think a lot of
I agree.
Don't have like a specific USP. You don't have to be a history presenter or a sports presenter. It might help you. Some people it really helps, but then I don't think it's like an impossible task without one. I personally don't really think I have one. I wouldn't really say I have a USP as such, but I do tend to get cast in a lot of the same types of roles. So, like, whether it be kids stuff, kind of slightly factual stuff, like educational. So I've done some educational stuff, like teaching English as a foreign language. I'm working with English Heritage at the moment on a new series, so I'm kind of one of their presenters at the moment. Things like science. I did some videos of the Royal Society, but again, I'm not a scientist. I think it's just like an educational route that I kind of go down, and that's why I kind of marry kids and educational kind of together. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know. It's like I've just really rambled, but yeah, I don't know. It's like
I think it's really freeing to hear that, because you don't have to pressure yourself to have a niche or unique selling point. I think one thing I always say when people ask me is I'm just curious. Like, my whole thing is just curiosity. I like talking to people. I like exploring different topics. I think that's okay. I think we're just in a world now that's so overly saturated, in terms of the industry and media and everything else, that we feel like we need to really stand out. But everybody has their own charm, whether they know it or not, and somebody will connect with you. So I think your USP is that you have a clear, confident voice and presenting style. I think you go into everything with a really warm, bubbly smile and energy, and I think that's what makes you a unique presenter. So,
very kind, thank you.
So you can say that to people now. Have someone else tell you.
That's kind, thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. So, and the next question is a little bit leading on from that, but of all the wonderful things that you've done, is there a particular project or job you've taken on where you thought, wow, that's where I feel most authentically myself? Like, anything in particular that you've done so far?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm really loving this stuff I'm doing with English Heritage at the moment. That's quite a recent thing. It's not actually out to the public. I can talk about it, but it's not out yet. But yeah, so it's a kids kind of TV style series it's going to be on their YouTube next year in 2023. Interviewing historians, and growing up I used to really love, like, going to English Heritage castles and sites and learning about it, like horrible histories. I really loved history, like learning about history when I was a child. So for me to be the presenter of something which is that for young children, I think it's really cool. Like, just something that I was saying to the production team, I was like, I would have loved this when I was younger, watching this. So maybe, yeah, that's something that I really thought, like, yeah, I just really love that. And hopefully we've got some more stuff coming up in the...
It sounds super exciting. I can't wait to watch it. Have you ever been up North London, like Waltham Cross, Broxbourne area?
I haven't, no.
It's a bunch of English heritage sites up here, different parks and things, and even just on my walks I've discovered, I'm like, oh, there's so much history here. So I recommend it.
I'll be there.
Yes, come along. So how did you go about discovering this opportunity? Was this just a job that popped up? Are these people that, you've been emailing and saying, by the way, I'm really interested in what you do and I'd love to be involved? How did you get into that particularly?
So I'm really lucky to say that this one was one that came to me. They found me online. I filmed a travel show this summer, and I was out for dinner with the crew I was working with. We were filming like a travel TV series. I think we were in Italy at this point.
Ooh.
Possibly. I get confused because we were in Austria. We went to Austria, Italy, and Slovenia. And we were like dipping in and out of the countries all the time because we were right along the border. I think this was in Italy, and we were at dinner. And they were like, I had this email. I had to do this sort of self tape, and we literally went between courses. Like, so I was so busy like filming this thing. It was between like starter and main. Genuinely, like. I got the camera and I was like, come with me, we need to film this. We were like down by the docks in front of boats filming this like self-tape they wanted from me, which is just, it was like a paragraph of script they wanted, basically pretending you're introducing yourself as the new host. And filmed that and sent it off. Didn't hear anything for a while. And I think funnily enough, I emailed to be like, hey, because it'd been past the deadline of when I was going to hear. And I remember just being like, hey, has this gone to someone else now? And she was like, no, it's not, we haven't, but you've got it, like sort of thing. So
oh wow,
just, good luck that that one came to me. They found me through my website, or I think someone, it's one of those things where I can't remember quite, they found my website but someone else had recommended me or something like that. And so they're the nicest jobs because you don't have they just kind of come out of nowhere and you don't expect them and you're not chasing them. They just suddenly come to you. You're like, this is good.
I think, you know what, I think the longer you're in the industry, the more your name sort of gets out there and people come to you. I think in the early stages, it's quite intimidating applying to things. I think that's one thing that I really struggled with in the beginning as well, was getting a job through applying.
Yeah.
So one thing that I started doing was like networking directly and emailing and almost creating that space, which is another thing that I think community radio does really well. By meeting people around you, you can create that opportunity for each other as well. Is that something that you've ever gone through or done in order to sort of create an opportunity for yourself?
Oh my god, 100%. 100%. I don't really pitch ideas I haven't really pitched that many ideas, I wouldn't say. But in terms of like that, so I remember there was one time a job that I saw online and it was to host an event. And I saw the job ad and I thought, this sounds really cool. I want to host an event. And sometimes with the job ad, they can say the name of the company. I think I added a few of them on LinkedIn, and they all like accepted quite quickly. And then maybe like, I think I just I wrote out a message, and just copied and pasted it to the 2 or 3 people I messaged. I think that 2 people I sent it to one, and then one of the guys replied and was like, hey, I'm the right person to contact about this, and said like, I think he made a joke like, you've got yourself noticed, don't worry, because of the fact that I'd gone and like emailed it. And this just to say, this isn't me encouraging you like harassing people at all. But because I'd emailed 2, they both obviously said, I've got a message. And then he was like, well, he said, we really like you for this job actually. So because I'd showed the keenness, they were like, we're going to put you forward. Which I ended up getting that job, and I've worked with them I've worked with them since. Actually, I've got a job with them next week as well. Just like different jobs I've had through them in the past. So again, don't necessarily like encourage people to be like harassing, but sometimes it's putting up like saying hello outside of so I know what you mean. When you're doing a casting, you're like a picture and a little bit of a bio. Like it's hard to stand out sometimes in that situation. So I do get where you're coming from. It can be quite daunting. But yeah, I think keeping it short and sweet, just saying your main points, not being too like rambly, I think helps.
Yeah.
But often they are probably just going to look at your showreel and be like yes or no, and it might not be what you've written. It's just whether they think you're right for it from a showreel, probably.
It's interesting that you phrased it as harassing. I think, you know what, I definitely encourage people to do that though. Reach out, don't be afraid to send even that second email. My personal rule is maybe remind them of it once after and then leave it. But yeah, I don't think people should be afraid of doing that because they're afraid it might be a bit like, oh, am I bothering them?
Yeah, no, I agree. I do agree.
Best like advice I ever got was don't be afraid to. That's definitely something I feel as well. I'm like, oh my god, am I harassing someone? Am I like bothering them? But yeah, definitely LinkedIn is a great tool, I reckon.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I agree.
So I have another question for you. This might put you on the spot a little bit. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
So imagine young Esme, you're like a young teenager, you're getting into the industry all over again. If you could tell yourself then something that you know now, what would it be? Something that you believe would have helped you, or you wish you knew back then?
Okay. Probably Do you mean in terms of like career or in terms of my presenting?
Yeah, could be anything career related, really.
Oh my god, it's such a hard one. There's so many things I would say. Just like stop over panicking about everything, stop over worrying about everything. I'm such a worrier. Probably when I was at the local TV station when I first started, I was quite shy about the fact that I was doing presenting, in the sense that I wanted to do it for a while, but this isn't something I was like set on for years. I wasn't one of those kids who's like a theatre kid who knows they're going to get into this sort of industry at all. I really, really wasn't. I was quite shy sometimes as a child. I wanted to be a midwife, went to work in a hospital for a bit, didn't really like it. And then I didn't go to uni. So I did start at local TV quite young, I would say. I was like 19 or something like that, 18, 19, I can't really remember, maybe 19. And yeah, so I would say to myself to use that opportunity better. Because I think in the early days, I was too shy to like really talk about the fact I was doing presenting. Like I didn't make the most of it. Whereas my colleagues at the time, you know, they were posting about it on social media, they were posting about it. I didn't really ever post about it or talk about it or say anything. I think being out there is really important. For example, if you go through my Instagram right far back, there's like one photo of me in front of like a weather background, like a screenshot I posted. Like it's like one. I just didn't post about it. Like, I didn't really want to talk about it. And I think even the caption is just like I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but I felt the caption's just some emojis like to do with weather. Like,
why is this me? I feel like you're describing me.
I didn't even write anything.
I need to hear this.
Yeah, I didn't even write anything. I just did not make use of this time, and I was doing it for a year, and I was doing other stuff, and I just, I was out on reporting on things or like presenting in the studio. I think I posted like one photo of the studio, but I should have been doing more and like really putting out a presence back then. Because then when I got made redundant, I didn't really have anything to like show as much. Obviously, I had the videos and I had taken some pictures, but I just didn't really like to talk about it. And I think that comes down to being shy that I was doing it. Like I remember first telling people, oh, I think I might chase this presenting career. I do remember there were people who were a bit like, huh? Like, what?
Yeah, they don't get it.
Or like, yeah, they just don't get it. Or they were like, what, you're just trying to be famous? Like, just like stupid comments. Not everybody. A lot of people were really kind about it, but like some people were a bit like, how's that going to be a job? So, yeah, I think because of that, I was just quite shy about posting about it and getting quite embarrassed. Now I don't care. Like, I know, like people, if people aren't interested, they can unfollow. I'm not, it's not up to.
Yeah, for sure.
That's their problem, not mine. And I now post about. In fact, my Instagram now is probably only work. I have a private one that's for like non-work stuff, but like this Instagram, my main Instagram that I publish, is like just for work stuff, because I think, and I hear this quite a lot. Jobs want to come onto your onto your Instagram and your socials and see like what you're up to and that you're busy and you're working. I get criticised for not posting stories. I don't really do much on the stories front until I like talking to camera. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to. But people do criticise me for that. But generally, I post where I'm working, or most of the stuff I'm doing. Sometimes I forget and I don't post, but I try and be better. So I think that would be my. Sorry, again, I'm such a rambler, but yeah,
no, we love it. We love the rambling. That's why you're here. It's a podcast.
I'm thinking of things as I'm saying them. So yeah, I would say probably to embrace it from the start. Like when you decide you want to do, if you're watching this or listening to this and you're like, I want to be a presenter, just embrace it from the start. Like tell people you're a presenter when you like introduce yourself as a presenter. I used to say things like, oh, I kind of do like a bit of like presenting. I kind of like the idea of that, but I'm not really sure. I would just be really shy about it. Just be like, yeah, I'm a presenter. This is what I do. And then I think that's, just the confidence in saying. And the more you say it, I remember it being so weird to say for a while. And the more I said it and I got further into like the career and stuff, like that's how I introduce myself. Like, oh, I'm a presenter. I'm a host. I don't even I don't even think about it. Like, do you know what I mean? Whereas before I would have been like, oh, am I qualified to say that? Have I done enough work to count that? Just say it. Like, who cares? Do you know what I mean?
No, you're so right. And I love that you bring up social media, because I think it is actually quite hard to be really present online and to keep sort of updating people with what you're doing. I'm someone who hates it personally. Like, the way you were back then is how I still am, to be honest, where I'm like really begrudging about what I post. I'll do a quick story and that's it, or I'll do a post every now and then. But I think I'm going to take that advice on board myself, to be honest, and be more present and post and try not to get overwhelmed by it, because I can get quite overwhelmed by social media, as I'm sure many people can. But then maybe limiting out other forms of social media that are less important, or really prioritizing where you're putting that energy so you don't get overwhelmed by it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it's just knowing that, like, I think my key things with social media would be, one, yeah, just keep make sure you're present. Like when people find you, like I get work. Someone emailed me today about appearing on the news about something. Do you know what I mean? Like people just find you through really random ways, and I think if you're not out there, people don't know to ask you about things.
That's
So I would
so
say that's
true.
important. I don't think you should post like. I think there's a quality as quantity. I think some people do just post for the sake of posting. I don't know how productive that is either.
20-minute stories every day.
Yeah, or just really frequently. I don't know. You don't have to post if you haven't got anything to post. You don't have to. Don't feel pressured. Is my point. Like don't feel like you have to fake something, or you don't. It doesn't matter that much. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But also, I'd say not comparing too much to what you see on other people's social media as well. I know that's something I've been doing in the past. I'm better at it now. Doesn't really get to me as much anymore. But when you see other people doing jobs and you're like, oh my God, they're working all the time and blah, blah, blah. But then actually you speak to those people and you're like, and you find out that maybe it's like not as good as it seems, or they're not enjoying it, or, you know, or they are enjoying it, but it's unpaid, or, you know, my point is that you never know. Like sometimes someone can look really, really, really super, super busy. Maybe they are, but maybe they aren't. And then they're just good at showing you the best bit. So I've had people say to me before, like, oh my God, you're so busy. Like people Instagram message me and be like, oh my God, how'd you get so much work? And then I'll be like, oh, I haven't, like maybe it's in the summer and it's like a quiet period and I haven't worked in a week or something like that or whatever. I'm like, well, I don't know what it's just how things look. Yeah, so just take everything you see with a pinch of
That's such a good point. Like nothing is ever quite as it seems, first of all. But also, even if somebody is quite intimidating in a sense that like maybe they're doing everything you want to do, or maybe it looks like they're doing so much and you start comparing. I think it's important to remember as well that creating a community of people around you that are doing what you do, even though it can be intimidating, it's also really inspiring if you let it be, because you can talk to these people and you can get advice on how to do what they're doing, and if they're kind, they might even introduce you to someone. I feel like you can let jealousy take over, or you can let it empower you to go on and like befriend that person for the sake of like, wow, this person is so cool and they're doing these amazing things. And yeah, everything's a mindset. So I think that's really true though. Don't be afraid to post yourself and create that network of people. I think it's harder to post and be present when people you're following and that follow you don't do what you do. You feel a bit more self-conscious about it, right? But when I'm on my feed and I see you and I see everyone from Riverside posting their content, it's like, oh, I don't feel awkward now posting this.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. And I think as well what you're saying about befriending people as well. I think there are people who I'm definitely like, I've never even met in person, but I know through Instagram, whatever. And I'm like, oh, like, and I really am happy for them when they get jobs. And I know and it's especially those who do that back to me, like the people, I'm always really hyper aware of people who are very supportive of me as well. It goes both ways, you know, if there's people who have been really kind to me and like, you know, message me or whatever, they're the people I try and make sure I make an effort to do it to them back, because I know how it makes me feel, so I'm not trying to do that to them as well.
For sure.
I think that's really nice. I think the only thing is I would say if you're really a beginner and there's someone that does stuff that you want to be doing, I don't think it's a problem to message someone, just be like, hey, how did you get to where you are? I've done that before and I've had people do it to me. I think as long as you like, I've had some people message me before and they don't even like, they're like, I love your work, and they don't even follow you or anything like that. They have never seen you, like they haven't seen your work.
Yeah.
And it's not like I care if they follow me or not, but I think sometimes people can lie and kind of just say like, how did you get that job? Like, because they just want to do it. And I think there's ways of going about it politely. But yeah, I think it's a really good idea to reach out to someone and just be like, hey, I really like what you're doing. Is there any chance you can give me some advice on how to get to where you are or whatever like that, or where you started? I mean, yeah, that sort of thing I think is quite nice to do.
Esme, thank you so much. Honestly, like you've come on here and you've been like, your advice has been so insightful that even I'm gonna go off and literally just start posting more and be more present in life. I've just got one last question for you, just a little fun one to end the show. If you could present any current show, whether it be radio or TV, that's out there that exists already, and you think to yourself, this sums me up as a presenter. If I could do anything, it would be that. What would it be? Is there a show out there like that for you?
Blue Peter on BBC.
You're not going to believe this. It's like legit on my CV. That was my first dream.
Oh!
When I was 9 years old, I wanted to be a Blue Peter presenter, and I had no idea you were going to say that. Wow.
Yeah, I think that just, at the moment, that's what it is, yeah.
It's the best. It's the best show. Is it still on, though? Or did they take that off? Okay, so people will still know about it. Well, that's good. Yeah, it's a great show. Oh, what a great way to end. And hopefully I'll see you around at Riverside.
Yes,
eventually.
Thank you,
Thank you so much for coming on, guys. Stay tuned next week. Well, I don't know if it'll be out next week, but for my up and coming episodes, because I'll be interviewing a lot more amazing, wonderful guests and chatting to them also. Thanks again, Esme. Take care.
Bye.